And a good morning to you once more, Lagos. You're tuned in and listening to Smooth 98.1. Right now, it's time to jump into the world of business inside Business Express. And in the studio with me, as usual, I've got Rotus.
Good morning, Folu. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, Lagos. The drill, as per usual this morning, is to use the hashtag BusinessExpress981 if you want to share your comments on this morning's business stories with us up on Twitter. You can also watch us live and comment live on our YouTube stream. So just go to YouTube and search for Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And last but not least, send us WhatsApp messages to 0809 444 0981.
Thank you, Folu. So I want to welcome Kayode of ARM and Ugo Dre of Nairametrics in studio. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
All right. Now, Lagos, we're going to flip things a little, actually. We'll get to the market updates when we're talking about the what we suspect could be or could not be a bearish run from Friday since the market did. But I want to get into stock picks. But before we get into stock picks, it's good to understand that there's sometimes legal issues that affect some of these companies that we like, and so it's a good thing to be aware of what's going on because it might involve First Bank and GTB over the weekend. Yeah, take us through, please.
Yeah, so basically, a lot of the companies that you have on a Nigerian stock exchange actually have legal, they have litigations for or against them. I think there was a time we did an article on this, especially for the top 5 banks, and it was quite a lot of these things. I think probably ran into trillions. Their lawyers will tell you that it might never crystallize.
Okay.
Right? But these are just litigations, and banks have an obligation to actually disclose them. Now, the one that the two litigations that actually came into public purview is the GTB versus Innocent one, and it was kind of interesting. I think on Thursday, Innocent came up with a flurry of tweets, that they had won a case against GT Bank, and GT Bank was going to pay them billions of naira.
I think it was 14 or so,
based on the order of Supreme Court or what have you. And then, of course, social media went on a frenzy. A lot of websites carried it, and of course, including Nairametrics as well, because that was from Innocent's side.
Right.
But then we had not seen anything yet from GTV press release clarifying the entire thing. And it happened that the Supreme Court actually never did give any verdict in favor of Innocent. In fact, they said that they should return. I think they were supposed to go back to the appeal court or so.
Right, they both ended up summoning them back,
to
right.
GTV's own hearing. So totally different from what the order the Supreme Court actually gave. So I think that same Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Innocent quickly deleted those tweets. I think they were afraid that there was probably the Supreme Court might bring contempt against them, because it was wrong to misinterpret
what the court said.
Verdict. So interesting kind of event, and of course, investors were a little bit spooked by some of these things because if indeed that they were meant to pay any damages or the court had made them pay any of this money, it's obviously going to hit their bottom line.
Right.
Now, First Bank on the other hand was that Shell and the Ogoni community had a case that's been dragging for years now.
Okay.
And the gist is that the judge had actually said that First Bank basically guaranteed, put some money as guarantee for Shell. In the case, and in case Shell loses it, then First Bank would pay. So I think Shell lost that case, and then the court actually said First Bank should pay. But I think First Bank also took them to court as well, trying to extricate itself from the entire thing, and because it's First Bank actually never really was a party to that transaction.
Okay.
So of course, the whole of last week in the media was all that First Bank's board of directors have been convicted for this, but First Bank put up their own press release. I think over the weekend, a very lengthy one, which you probably see in Nairametrics as well, or some other websites.
Okay.
Today.
So based on these clarifications, now I would guess now no reason to worry for both companies. I guess until further notice from the courts.
Well, yes, they don't. I mean, they seem to allay the concerns of shareholders or investors, but that fear is there. That, I mean, because the court hasn't actually ruled in their favor, right? So it hasn't been decided yet. So there's no clarity in terms of the decisions that have been made. So the risk is still there. So, but if you look at the amount, I don't think it's anything that's going to cause too much of a dent on any of these companies.
Yeah, because GTB and First Bank, of course, are massive tier one. Okay, Ugo Dre, thank you so much for that synopsis. Kayode, now we hop to the markets now. Friday, the market dropped 0.96%, almost approximately 1% drop after about 2-3 days of a bull run, which itself followed 11 days of a bearish run. So back and forth we go. Is there any reason to think? I don't want to put you on the spot to predict here, but is there any reason to think that we're back on a bearish run this week?
Well, it's very difficult to give a call
Yeah.
because most of the sell-offs you've seen, like we just talked about, is not largely fundamental.
Mm.
So I think there's quite a lot of panic generally in the market. You have the bandwagon effect, and on the offshore side, to the foreign guys, I think there's quite a lot of panic about political risk and FX issues because we're starting to see that. Like last week we talked about the depletion in reserves.
Right.
Just in the month of June, you've actually had double of what depleted in the month of May.
Mm.
So we've seen that though some of them came through Eurobond payments, but a large part of it is actually the fact that the IEW is in net outflows. So foreign investors are beginning to panic about the market.
Mm.
But I think if you look at it, if you're looking at the pull factor, this week the FOMC is meant to meet and they're expecting to actually raise
Raise
interest
rates again.
So if that basically plays out, then to actually go into the market. There are still quite a lot of stocks that are fundamentally actually sound now, and at low price, just buy into the dip.
Okay. Now we have this thing with acronyms. Whenever we throw one out, somebody always hits me up with it text and says, "Rotus, what's FOMC?" So that's the
Federal Open Market Committee. That's like the MPC of
of America. Thank you. So help anybody out there. So based on that, what do you like? I mean, as far as stock picks out there.
Well, there are quite a lot of interesting stocks now. But I think this week I would say first is I'll look at First Bank.
Okay. See, that's why. Sorry, that's why Ugo Dre had to give us that little story there. Okay.
Yeah, that story. It's I'm actually I'm going to actually adjust about 14 billion. But that's not significant to their earnings. Because a large part of what we draw for First Bank, they had asset quality issues.
Right.
So there's going to be a large drop in terms of their provisioning, like 22%. Apply the worst case scenario that assuming the bank is not going to grow its loan books, NPLs will come down but slightly, and also they will have to provide so lower. So First Bank is that company that bank that actually grew in terms of return on equity. So from about 2% to about 8.2 this year.
Okay.
So at the worst case scenario, we have a fair value target price of about 14.40.
Okay.
So I have a strong buy on the stock. Another stock is CCNN. So yeah, it's rallied, but there's still a strong case for an upside.
Okay.
And it's just driven by expansion. So BOA, basically, who is the largest shareholder of CCNN, actually just commissioned the plant in Sokoto, which is about 1.5 million metric tons.
Okay.
CCNN's current capacity is about 500,000 metric tons. So that's about 4 times what they currently do now. And they're actually more competitive than Dangote in that place because the distance from Sokoto to Kano is actually shorter than Obajana to Kano.
Okay.
So their cement price is lower than what Dangote sells. So they have that cost efficiency that has been eating them because the current plant is on LPFO, which is diesel, and now this one is going to roll on coal, which is cheaper.
Okay.
So you see increase in revenue, and also you see lower cost. But the only problem is how that asset will come into CCNN. But even with that, earnings is still going to be good this year. So CCNN is that stock.
What does CCNN stand for? Sorry.
Cement Company of Northern Nigeria.
Right,
So you can call it Sokoto Cement.
Okay, cool. Any other pick?
Okomu.
Okomu. Okay.
Yeah, so we have a strong buy on Okomu. More largely driven by lower energy costs because Okomu's plant currently runs on national grid. So what happened is recently they've connected it to the Benin Disco. So energy cost, 60% of the energy cost now is on national grid, which is cheaper for them. So also if you look at the market, they actually export rubber and volumes have actually increased significantly. So that's basically what will drive the earnings for Okomu. So I think it's a stock to look at.
Thank you, Kayode. Thank you. Ugo Dre, what do you like out there?
Yeah, so I've got some stocks on my watch list and then a pick. Let's start with the pick. So my stock pick since last week has been Julius Berger.
Okay.
I think that at the price earnings ratio of about 7.6, I think Julius Berger is cheap. It's been a rough 2 years for Julius Berger, and they managed to eke out profit last year. 2 years ago, it was a loss. Revenue has been dipping steadily, but I think Julius Berger is gradually turning the corner, and they've been a bit boisterous lately in the news. The CEO has come out to say, look, they've won 1 or 2 contracts here and there, and it's also out in the news that they have actually gotten some major contracts. So I think that business might boom for Julius Berger towards the second half of the year, and a lot of this will filter into profit. In fact, the profits that they made the first quarter of this year basically was higher than what they did in the first 2 quarters of last year.
Wow.
The second quarter of last year was a loss or thereabouts. So my eyes is actually set on Julius Berger. Now, in terms of stocks on my watch list, a mixed bag of stocks that did well and didn't do well. Japol.
What?
Not that
you have Japol?
No, not as a stock I want.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Watch and so stock pick and watch list are
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
So Japol is my watch list on our watch list. analysts were wondering, Japan did I think 40% on the bounce also
Yes,
last week, and
yeah.
I'm wondering what exactly are investors thinking.
Is it me lost
right?
again?
I mean, somebody else coming there is very beautiful bride coming out,
right.
or groom, and then Prestige Assurance, very very interesting one there. I think they initially said they were going to do a share reconstruction, and then whoops, U-turn. They now said they want to do a bonus issue. So we actually have an article on that on Nairametrics. Incredible
the turnaround there.
Turnaround there. MPF Microfinance Bank had a bit of a bearish week last week. They paid some dividends, so we're trying to see if perhaps maybe they might bounce back this week. The markdown actually affected them. And then lastly, United Capital, their CEO resigned. I think so. It'll be interesting to see what happens to that company going forward. It's been a performer over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Companies that I actually like. And then they've also paid dividend consistently. They've rewarded shareholders. In fact, United Capital is one of those stocks that you can say are your typical stock picks, and you know that
performer.
You'd always do well. So the CEO resigned. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and then how the market takes it this week.
Okay, interesting stuff. Message?
Yeah, very quickly, we had a message come through. This one is in from Yinka, who says, I feel that both innocent and anyone who's a public figure that misinterprets the Supreme Court judgment should be arrested. Trust me. They messed up the system briefly with that talk of GT to pay 14 billion.
I mean, it's just coming down. We hate to say this, but it's basically so that's high base of last year.
Yeah.
So we're expecting it to come down to about 11.7%. Before the end of the year, it should actually touch 10%.
Okay.
But you see, on the one you should look at is a month-on-month. So Ramadan season, you always see food prices actually higher, and so that basically will affect month-on-month inflation. There's some going forward. I mean, next year, that's when there might be some risks to inflation, because we've tried to look at terms of subsidy, and it's covered that the government currently will be spending about 70 billion or losing 70 billion from the recovery. So if crude prices between 60 to 70, they will actually have to raise PMS prices definitely.
Interesting.
And so you also have liquidity impact. FX is also something to watch out for. I think next year it will actually close at 400. So that's the pressure to inflation currently. So people expect that the decline in inflation, the MPC will have to cut rate. But we don't. We think that they will have to hold the rate for the rest of this year, because they are quite concerned about FX and liquidity impact on FX.
Okay, interesting. We only got 45 seconds. You've been good with your picks on inflation. What do you think for me?
I think it's going to trend downwards as well. But just like you said, it's important for the folks out there to know that the government has actually taken steps in the break. So, and they would probably take their leg off that break next year. So he made mention of fuel prices. I actually think that they might deregulate fully next year. Power, right? So electricity, they might raise tariffs next year as well, because the sector is basically in a logjam now. And I don't think the government has a lot more leeway to go. So they might at some point, force to actually let go. And that those are
powerful predictions from the two of you. As well.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Coming up next, Lagos Frankly Speaking with Miwa Afolabiva at 7:30. Detailed newspaper analysis inside of Freshly Pressed.
Thank you.